This week's bird is the scrub jay. I love them so much that I've chosen them to be the very first bird I discuss here on my YouTube channel. Why? Because they hang out in my yard, and seeing them always improves my day. And since I see them every day, my life is simply amazing. Today, we recognize 4 distinct species of scrub jay, but originally all scrub jays were lumped together. In 1998, the 7th edition of the American Ornithological Society checklist of North and Middle American birds split the species into 3: the island scrub jay, the western scrub jay, and the Florida scrub jay. Then, in 2016, the species was split again, and western scrub jays became either California scrub jays or Woodhouse's scrub jays. Just listen to these fabulous songbirds. Yes, you heard me right. That noise came from a songbird. Yes, I am absolutely sure. Unsurprisingly, since they were all considered one species originally, all 4 species of scrub jay have a lot more in common than not, so let's start there. Scrub jays are a part of the corvid family. There are quite a few members of this family, but of course the best known are crows and ravens. When it comes to what we call them when they're hanging out in groups, corvids tend to get the gloomy end of the stick. A bunch of ravens are a conspiracy or an unkindness, and crows are called a murder. Jays, however, get to have a little bit more fun. You can have a band, party, or cast of jays. But if you're feeling annoyed by your local jays, it's also correct to call them a scold. This cast of scrub jays are putting on Oklahoma. There's antagonist Judd Fly taking off in the back. These birds are called Bruce Scrubstein and the Jay Street Band. Scrub jays are named for their preference for living in scrub vegetation, an area with mostly shorter plants like shrubs and small trees. And, as can be expected in this type of environment, they spend a lot of time hanging out close to the ground. Appearance-wise, all scrub jays are blue, but they lack the funky headwear and natural punk style of the bird we actually call blue jays. And just in case that wasn't confusing enough, the Steller's jay is also a blue-colored jay with a crest. Because of their crestless heads, scrub jays belong to the genus Aphelocoma, which comes from the Greek for smooth hair. Also included in this genus are the Mexican jay, the unicolor jay, and the transvolcanic jay. And before you get your hopes up like I did, the name transvolcanic refers to the specific region of Mexico in which these jays live, not some super cool supernatural habit of diving into volcanoes. Okay, I didn't really think they did that, but it did pop into my mind. I've been reading a lot of comic books lately. But anyhow, we'll talk about jays of the non-scrub variety some other time. If you see a scrub jay with a lot more gray than usual, especially on the head, that's a juvenile bird. They'll get more blue as they get older. Scrub jays are about as long as a large banana, about 11 to 12 inches, and the weight of a much smaller banana, about 3.1 ounces. Fun fact, when I googled average banana length, I learned that this is a very common way to ask about something that is definitely not actually a banana. While many birds will lay 2 to 3 broods per year, scrub jays typically have only 1, usually with 2 to 4 eggs. On very rare occasions, a breeding pair might have 2 broods in a season. Scrub jays are non-migratory and tend to stay in the same general area for their whole lives. The major exception to this is known as eruptive dispersion, which is when their food source is compromised and they strike out into new territory to find the food they need to survive. They also tend to be fairly committed partners to their mate and usually stay together their whole lives once they've paired off. Since they don't move around too much, staying together probably saves them from a lot of awkward run-ins at the grocery store or post office. Although they keep to their small family units most of the year, just a breeding pair and their most recent babies, in the winter scrub jays often form larger social groups. All 4 species of scrub jay have a similar omnivorous diet. They eat seeds, nuts, acorns, insects, eggs from other birds, even sometimes fellow scrub jays, and small animals like frogs, lizards, snakes, mice, and hummingbirds. Due to availability, they tend to eat mostly bugs in the summer and mostly nuts and seeds from their private stores in winter. Since they don't always retrieve all the food they've stashed away for the winter, all scrub jays play an important role in seed dispersal, often leaving seeds, nuts, and acorns in the ground to sprout. Another important service that scrub jays provide is to help keep their nearby deer free of ticks and other parasites. The deer even stop and help out by giving the scrub jays access to their ears. Because of territory overlap, Florida scrub jays make friends with the white-tailed deer, while California and Woodhouse's scrub jays mainly are helping out mule deer. The only scrub jays that don't do this are island scrub jays, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that they would if there were any deer at all where they live. Like most corvids, scrub jays are extremely intelligent and have about the same brain-to-body size ratio as chimpanzees. They're known to keep track of up to 200 different food caches, which demonstrates both their ability to plan ahead and some pretty remarkable memory. As someone who can lose track of something I'm still holding in my hand, I'm feeling pretty impressed by these birds right now. They also sometimes spy on other birds as they hide their food stores, particularly woodpeckers, Clark's nutcrackers, and other jays. Then the scrub jays come back later to help themselves. Like most thieves, they're hyper-aware of the possibility of theft and are known to make sure that no one is watching as they hide their own food. Much like elephants and other highly intelligent animals, scrub jays hold funerals for their fallen brethren. They screech to attract other scrub jays to the body and then stand nearby and hold a vigil for a day or two. The easiest way to tell which kind of scrub jay you've spotted is by location. Shockingly, you'll find the Florida scrub jay in Florida. Moving west from there, you'll find the Woodhouse's scrub jay. You'll notice there are no scrub jays between Florida and Texas, but once you hit the Woodhouse's range, they're all over the place. So what do Florida and Texas have in common that the states between them don't? No state income tax. But somehow I don't think the birds are overly concerned with that one, so I don't actually have an explanation for the gap here. When the California and Woodhouse's scrub jays were both part of the species western scrub jay, the Woodhouses were considered a subspecies labeled interior, and the California scrub jays were the coastal subspecies. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that the California scrub jay's range runs right along the west coast here. Because the two were split not only due to geographical differences, but also because of their distinct appearances, there is actually some overlap in their territories in western Nevada, making this small area the only place where you can't figure out what kind of scrub jay you're looking at by location alone. Studies have found a big enough difference in the mitochondrial DNA between California and Woodhouse's scrub jays that scientists estimate they split off from a common ancestor over 130,000 years ago. It seems like their shared territory is comparatively recent. If you're in western Nevada and can't tell whether you're looking at a California or a Woodhouse's scrub jay, it may actually be a hybrid, although interbreeding seems to be somewhat uncommon. Island scrub jays are found exclusively on Santa Cruz Island, off the coast of Southern California. Okay, but what if you're trying to identify a scrub jay from a photograph? Well, don't worry. Each type of scrub jay does have some distinct physical features. Oddly enough, scrub jays tend to get brighter blue the farther west you move. Florida scrub jays are the palest. Woodhouses are bluer than Florida scrub jays, but not as vibrant as the California scrub jays. And island scrub jays are so bright blue that the first time I saw a photo of one, I mistakenly assumed it was retouched. Florida scrub jays are also grayer than the other species, who have a bit more of a darker brown hue mixed in, especially on their backs. They also have more white on their foreheads, where other species have more eyebrow-like white lines. The most noticeable difference between Woodhouses and California scrub jays is in the shoulder area. California scrub jays have more blue feathers coming down off the shoulders into the chest area. They also have a starker difference between their brownish back feathers and the white on their chests, where Woodhouse's scrub jays tend to have a more brown-gray gradient through this area. Woodhouse's scrub jays also have thinner beaks, more suited to getting at pine nuts, and California scrub jays' beaks are thicker and more hooked for opening acorns. In addition to being by far the most vibrantly colored scrub jays, island scrub jays are also unique in displaying sexual dimorphism. While the females are roughly the same size as other species of scrub jay, males tend to be about 30% larger and even have chunkier beaks. California scrub jays are known to be less shy than their cousins. They're a common sight in backyards and seem to adapt well to sharing spaces with humans. Perhaps because of this, they're pretty successful, and their conservation status is least concern. In fact, despite being a non-migratory species, their territory seems to be expanding both north and east. If you live in the western part of Washington State, Oregon, California, or Mexico, you've almost certainly seen plenty of these guys, even if you don't pay that much attention to birds. Like California scrub jays, Woodhouse's scrub jays have a conservation status of least concern. They may not be quite as likely to hang out in human areas, but they're known to show up at backyard bird feeders. As the previous name changes have shown, the distinction between what counts as a species or a subspecies is a little bit fluid, and there's reason to believe that there might be more changes coming. In the 64th supplement to the American Ornithological Society's Checklist of American Birds, released in July of 2023, it was stated that voting on a proposal to separate Aphelocoma sumichraste from Aphelocoma woodhousei was postponed so that this change could be considered as part of a comprehensive proposal on the scrub jay complex. The 2024 edition, released in July as I was making this video, listed no changes for scrub jays, but it's hard to say what the future will hold. In a 2019 study published in the Auk, researchers discussed two different subspecies of the Woodhouse's scrub jay found in northern Mexico. One group, referred to as the Sumichrast group, was found to be consistently larger and had browner back feathers. Despite an overlap in their territories near Mexico City, researchers found very little evidence of intermediate specimens, so they concluded it was likely that these two subspecies evolved in isolation, and they don't tend to interbreed even though they're back in contact. Based on this study, it does seem like there's good argument for separating out the Sumichrast group from the Woodhouse group. The Florida scrub jay has unfortunately not been as successful as its cousins, and is listed as vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and as critically imperiled in the NatureServe conservation status system. In 2022, the state of Florida estimated that there were roughly 7,700 to 9,300 Florida scrub jays, and many conservationists fear that the population is declining. The biggest threat to Florida scrub jays seems to be the loss of their natural ecosystem due to development, climate change, and changing ecology. The Florida scrub habitat actually relies on occasional fires to keep its plant life scrub-sized. Since wildfire suppression allowed large oaks and other trees to take over some of the former scrub forest, conservationists have actually implemented controlled burns of the area to preserve this unique habitat and help out this beloved East Coast scrub jay. Of the 4 species of scrub jays, Florida scrub jays are the only ones that use cooperative breeding, meaning the kids will stick around for a couple of years to help raise their younger siblings before striking out on their own to find a mate. On several occasions, Florida state officials have introduced a bill to change the state bird from the mockingbird to the Florida scrub jay. Unfortunately, so far, the mockingbird remains. I don't mean to disparage the mockingbird, mind you, but it is also the state bird for Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas. Switching to the Florida scrub jay would give them a bird no other state could lay claim to, and hopefully reinvigorate conservation efforts. Be forewarned that if this channel ever gains any serious traction, I will use all my influence to bully Floridians to change their state bird. Do I live in Florida? No. I have no eggs in this chicken coop except my adoration of scrub jays and a willingness to be a problem for other people. Like the Florida scrub jay, the island scrub jay is listed as vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature and is critically imperiled in the NatureServe Conservation Status System. Although their numbers seem to be holding steady and not declining, their territory is so small that a natural disaster could wipe out a large percentage of the population. The island scrub jay lives only on Santa Cruz Island, a member of the Channel Islands off the coast of Los Angeles. While there are fossil remains of island scrub jays on both Santa Rosa and San Miguel Islands, also both members of the Channel Islands, there are no scrub jays on either island today. It's estimated that the island scrub jay has been isolated for roughly 1 million years, evolving separately from other branches of the scrub jay family. According to an article in the Rocky Mountain Collegian, researcher Hannah Horowitz has said that the island scrub jays could very likely fly to nearby Santa Rosa Island, and yet they seem to have chosen not to. In fact, island scrub jays have the smallest home range of any bird in North America. But the story of their territory gets even weirder. Despite being only 96 square miles, Santa Cruz Island actually has 2 distinct variations of scrub jay, distinguishable by their beak shape. Pine-heavy habitats play host to island scrub jays with longer, slimmer beaks than the ones in the oak-heavy areas, each having a shape that best helps them reach the food in their own spaces. Researcher Rebecca Cheek describes island scrub jays as serious homebodies. Once they've established a territory, she says, they will stay there pretty much for the rest of their lives. Maybe they stay put because they're just really busy catching up on Stranger Wings on Netflix. If you're asking yourself if I devoted several hours to recreating this picture from Stranger Things with my favorite characters as strangely anthropomorphic chickens, just to share this terrible pun with you, the answer is yes. Yes, I did. Thank you for coming with me on this exploration of one of my favorite birds. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and come back next week for a new bird. All photos and bird calls in this video are from WikiCommons. Maps are from Cornell University's Lab of Ornithology. Sources for all of these and for my research are listed in the description below. All goofy art added to the photos is mine.